闭幕式的最后环节是新书发布。
And now may I ask Martin Hall-Brown to say a few words, please.
Well, I think it's an extraordinary privilege to be able to promote my book at the end of this conference. And I won't say any more about it at all. I just want to thank the Global China Academy for allowing me to end my career on a high note. I began it 60 years ago in October 1961. That was my first professional appointment. I traveled down to Leicester with a friend from the LSE. Well, he was called Tony Giddens. And the two of us together, we started our careers then. Mine has had a different trajectory. In 1987, the institution I worked for went bankrupt. And ever since, I've moved from place to place. And I think since then, I've worked in 14 institutions. And the Global China Academy is the summit of my achievement. And I'm announcing today my retirement. I'm retiring from professional life, but I'm going to continue writing the things I want to write about, not for academics or the academic world, but I hope for the general readership. And thank you all very much indeed for giving me this wonderful occasion, a special juncture. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Martin.
Everything I want to say about this book as editor is in my editor's preface.
I'd like to make one point here. As early as 1986, when Professor Martin Hall-Brown founded the Journal of International Sociology, he realized that no political, cultural, or linguistic barrier for publications were principles of many Western so-called international academic journals. In practice, those barriers existed, especially the linguistic one, requiring authors to write in perfect English. Hall-Brown's policy was that no paper would be rejected on the language grounds, which means that they had to access papers in the language of their origin first. Therefore, he invited Dai Ke-jing of the Institute of Sociology, Chinese Academy of Social Science, to be an associate editor of the journal, and helped some Chinese sociologists publish their articles in the international journal. The Global Central Press carries on the policy, continue to bring Chinese social, scientific, and humanity work in the English-speaking world.
So I say no more words about it. I'm very pleased to brought Professor Robin Cohen all the way from Oxford to say a few words about this book.
Okay, I'm very conscious, Chair, that we need to rush. So let me just make one point and one point only. There are many aspects of the relationship between China and the West that are covered here, but the key discussion is about how cultures meet or collide. And very interestingly, Martin Hall-Brown has picked an important word called transculturation, which the editor points out appears no fewer than 182 times in that book. And so that's really what it's about, transculturalization. And I want to make clear that this is a very different concept from what we normally talk about, namely dialogue. If it's only dialogue, there's party A and there's party B, and they talk to each other, but they don't necessarily change each other. And linguists have a very interesting distinction between a pidgin and a creole. A pidgin is a language that you develop, which is very restricted, very instrumental, very narrow, without any great conceptual depth, and you retain your own languages. But a creole gets bigger and bigger. It grows more and more to the point where your own language recedes and the creole emerges as the mother tongue. And that seems to me to be the crucial way of talking about a human shared planet, not in terms of dialogue. Okay, when we still retain our own ideas, sentiments, cultures, sensibilities, history, power, and so on, but we actually project forward to the point where we can actually create a new shared culture. Okay.
招待会由英国社科院院士、英国皇家艺术院院士、兰开斯特大学语言学和英语语言学系教授、ESRC 语料库与社会科学研究中心主任艾琳娜·塞米诺教授主持。会上举办了环球世纪出版社的新书新刊发布活动，有6位嘉宾做了简短发言。
My name is Elena Semino. I'm a professor of linguistics at the University of Lancaster, and I direct the Center for Corpus Approaches to Social Science, which is the sponsor of today's event. I should join everyone else in thanking the organizers. This has been a fantastic experience for me. It's not my usual crowd, but I can think of linguistic and discourse problems every time I listen to one of your presentations. But what we're here to do now, and I hope you've all had some wine and some refreshments, is to talk about a new book and new journals by Global Century Press. So we have several speakers. They have 3 minutes each, and I am tempted to chair quite ruthlessly, which is in my nature anyway, because this is what's separating us from dinner. So if you're speaking, bear that in mind, that people will be less merciful than they normally would. Okay, so without further ado, there are 3 sections to this event. The first section is an introduction to Global Century Press. And the next speaker is Professor Xiangchun Chang, who is going to talk about creating a transcultural hybrid global publisher. Over to you.
Good evening, everybody. Because everybody had a long day, I just threw away my little speech note. I want to highlight a few things about the character of Global Century Press. The reason we gave all the books and the journal, and we make this brochure every year like this, because we try to form our own future and character. And the key word would be transcultural products. So we are making transcultural products, which is, you can see Chinese elements there, you can see Western elements, you can see different future, but we try to make it, in Chinese words, it's 中西合璧. You can mix it in a lousy way, you can mix it in a high quality way, we try to mix them into a better way. So I just want to say, for example, the map, the cover, you can tell, that's all map, that means global. And then everywhere we have a map. Sometimes people say you only have half a map, but so if you see the whole thing, you can see the whole map there. So that means we do things global, and we do comparative perspective in China. We are using China as comparable to compare with different countries and regions for different topics, cross-discipline. So that's what we do. And as an academy, we do things like we have final products. So that's how this academy is different from others, because we have a press. And we, over the period years, we can see how we create something, and we can make a contribution from Chinese studies or American study on China to make to add the sum of human knowledge. So that's our aim. Thank you very much.
Okay, I would now like to welcome Mark Lee. Right, Mark, who is a graphic designer and typesetter at Global Century Press, and he's going to talk about the press's model for English and Chinese dual language typesetting.
I'm going to try anyway. I've had water and I wish it was wine now. I'm used to being behind the scenes. Well, I'm the graphic designer and the typesetter, and all this is mine. I don't speak a word of Chinese, so I typeset all the preceding typesetting, but then I realised it would actually be really dull to lift that veil. Good editorial design should be invisible, like me. It's a window you look through to facilitate a reader's engagement with the content. You might find a book cover for example, pleasing to the eye, but I hope you do it after you've read the title and you've engaged with the idea that the book is communicating. So at Global Century Press, our goal was to present dual language content in a way that satisfies both Chinese and Western eyes. So on reflection, I realised that decisions like choosing when to use a Chinese comma or English comma, or when to use a fixed space or a flexible one, they're just surface details. The Global Century Press typesetting it's not really a task, but it's a proper transcultural process. Zanshin and I have got a unique working relationship. After typesetting a document, we work together to fine-tune the details live, using WeChat to talk while sharing images of the text to either explain our ideas or to try and show the results of our changes. Zanshin leans on me for the fine details of English and my experience in publishing, and in turn I rely heavily on Zanshin for her knowledge of Chinese language, history and culture, and her in-depth understanding of each book and journal that we work on. I've got a lot to learn about the nuances of typesetting in Chinese, but I think it's this transcultural partnership that's the actual heart of GCP's model. The typesetting is really just the result of it. I think it demonstrates everything that GCP and the Global China Academy stand for. So, thank you for listening.
Okay, so those of you who were here earlier, so we have two people who are going to talk about the book as reviewers. I hope you guys are here. Dr. Boyle. Yes, oh yes, come along. 3 minutes for you too.
Thank you, Professor. I think after one long day of having this conference, everybody already have a good idea of the relationship between China and the study of China, its cultural history, and the global governance, or some idea of it. So I'm going to save you a lot of time by highlighting some of the points by reading Martin Albrough's book, China and the Shared Future in Exploring Common Values and Goals. Some of those ideas that I find very, very illuminating. So, looking into the post-pandemic world, a stored globalization battled by resurgent nationalism on global scale, ironically, an international order aging back to a game of great powers 19th century style, or worse, the Cold War 20th century style. A renewed hope for governance protocols for tackling global challenges like climate change, poverty and biocultural diversity. A hyper-networked digital platform posing questions to our pillar understandings of modernity as institutions of human worth, democracy and choose. So what would Max Weber made of the 2020s in terms of the theoretical question that he adventured and explored in early 20th century? And I think that's the most striking question that Martin Albrough showed in his book, and that just keep me hooked into that book and keep reading chapters by chapters. And my general feeling is that when you look at the table of the contents, the chapters are made of very, very loose, connected themes from Belt and Road to globalization to Martin Albrough's own intellectual journey with Max Weber. But somehow, when I read some key quotes, many of the readings, by the way, read a bit more like the novel of Marcel Proust. Sorry, I exposed my private reading. So it's very experiential in the sense that you're almost unready to take the very striking points, very insightful points, just on the second that you stick with the book. So I'm going to share with you one or two, give it my digital background. So when I read these quotes, it was a threat of nuclear holocaust, and that signaled the end of modern age and its displacement by the golden age. And now it's the turn for the golden age to be replaced by the digital age. But it's so easy to slip through. And with such a big claim. And I have to stay on the page for minutes and minutes to try to work out what Professor Alborough is meaning by that. And then he went on, pointing out, in the case of globalizations identified here, this is not globalism. This is global governance in practice. And suddenly, you can see my struggle. We travel from the definition, the concept of modern age to digital age, and then there's a difference between globalism and global governance in practice. That just put me in a very, very exciting mode of thinking through all the topics and points and amazing arguments made by our panels today. And my understanding is that maybe an idea form like globalization, or what could be the normative best practice, is not the best way to tackle the kind of global challenges ranging from digital misinformation or digital virus or physical virus, whatever, and to climate change. Because we have to put all the things, good ideas, different understandings into practice and put the global governance into the actions, because actions will be conducive to understandings. And then we will think about what globalism will mean in the new age. And it probably be, in that sense, it probably be less fruitful to stay with the theorization and roots of what globalization is and how it took place, and whether we should keep the good benefits of that and try to avoid the next one. It's probably time to rethink in a grander scale, like Martin Alborough showed us, to really follow the steps of, theoretical steps of Max Weber, to follow the way we rationalize ourselves, and also, more importantly, the pragmatism that all the nations, countries, no matter how different they are, all having in common, the pragmatic spirit of putting things into actions. Thank you.
And then another reaction response to the book by Dr. Yang Wu.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to provide a book review, Professor Zhang. Thank you, Boyi, for covering some theoretical ground already. I'm going to make 3 points, hopefully fit into 3 minutes. First point, the innovativeness of the book lies in the approach to bridging purely academic inquiry with theme-oriented work addressing continent politics. Alborough draws his inspiration from Max Weber's study of religion, nationalism, power, and the market for understanding the relationship between multiculturalism and globalization. This firm belief in diversity leads the author's credence in global governance to safeguard a human future. This new global governance will need to be open and inclusive, containing elements from both left and right ideology, from communitarian and cosmopolitan ethics, depending on the current configuration of geopolitics and the means of mobilizing support. The second unique feature of the book is that shows Alborough has studied and practiced shared human values, through his academic endeavor to engage with both West and Chinese scholarship. Alborough views China's rise as coupled with the desire to ride the tides of Western globalization for its own benefit while maintaining continuity with its own ancient culture. So to Alborough, this differs China from Western-inspired models of governance. The success of China is therefore built upon the adaptation and assimilation of both Marxism and Western economics and the social sciences into its own culture tradition. Therefore, the future development of China is on the spirit of finding common goals and shared projects with other nations. Underpinning this book is transculturality as an effective theoretical and methodological tool for the study of globalization as a contested discourse and a master narrative. The merit of transculturality lies in the belief in shared values and a common interest among humanity without suggesting domination or supremacy. Albro proposed by practicing transculturality, governmental or non-governmental agency make a contribution to a developing common discourse, reinterprets for domestic audiences, and returns to take the dialogue forward. So it is obvious that Albro has practiced transculturality in compiling this book. The book contains co-authored articles by Albro with Chinese scholars, speeches delivered to Chinese audiences, and a panel discussion between him and other international scholars. For that reason, this book cannot be read as a conventional academic textbook or a monograph focusing on specialized subject. Instead, this book could be viewed as a map of a journey that takes readers on a Weberian quest for the search of the meaning of Chinese culture and modernity. Much of the book reads as a conversation resembling the many dialogues taking place between Albro and his scholarly friends along this journey. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this journal is a journal of corpus approaches to Chinese social sciences, and we have two people telling us about it. The first one is Dr. Qing Cao.
Hello, good evening. Nice to see you again. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to introduce this exciting new journal, Corpus Approaches to Chinese Social Sciences. So this is a timely addition to the current academic journal market with its novel approach of using corpus linguistics in the study of the Chinese society. So novel in the sense that the corpus linguistics as a social research tool is relatively new. So within China, corpus linguistics is broadly conceived as a sub-discipline in the study of linguistics. However, the importance of application of corpus linguistics as a research tool is increasingly recognized. So this journal is the currently only English language journal devoted to the study of the Chinese society using corpus linguistics. A corpus is a collection of naturally occurring examples of language use. So corpus analysis provides quantitative evidence from a large pool of data, and it can be processed using a computer. It provides an excellent opportunity to test and challenge of ideas, hypotheses, and intuitions about language use embedded in social change. So computer-performed calculations can assist us in manipulating a huge amount of data which are relevant to the issues and questions we are concerned with. Obviously, the launch of this journal is contextualized in the fundamental social changes in contemporary China that challenges all China scholars to interpret them. So the magnitude, profoundness, impact of China's transformation, both within China and in the world, requires us to make sense of these transformations and what they mean for China and for the world in the future. So I hope in this process, this journal, Corpus Approaches to Chinese Social Sciences, will make an important contribution. This journal is open to all papers using corpus approach in the study of the Chinese society. And we hope you will all support this journal and would very much appreciate it if you could just pass the message on to any interested scholars, because we are now starting to open to paper submissions. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Okay, and now my Lancaster colleague, Dr. Gavin Brooks, is also going to tell us his perspective on the same journal.
Thank you. So I won't be too long, because I'm aware that I stand between everybody here and a hot meal. My name is Gavin Brooks. I'm a UKRL Future Leader Fellow at Lancaster University in linguistics, and I'm also a member of the Centre for Corpus Approaches to Social Science, which Eleanor is the director of. Promoting this journal today is quite easy for me, really, particularly because Dr. Qing Cao just gave a fantastic introduction and an overview of the field. but also because I think that this day and the talks that we've seen today have really promoted the value and timeliness of this journal. You all have a copy of it in your goodie bags for today, by the way. Two things that have emerged from today for me. First is the immense and diverse ways that I think social science research can help us to understand our rapidly changing world, and of course the role of China within that. And that makes this journal really timely, I think. And another thing that really makes this journal quite timely is something that Eleanor alluded to as a fellow linguist, is as I've sat there today, every talk I thought, oh, there's a linguistic problem in there, or there's a linguistics question. And actually quite often we heard how the discourse or the vocabulary is important for mediating our relationships and understanding our world, including mediating relationships between nations, of course. So with all that said, I think this journal is very timely. I'm very excited and honoured to be a part of the editorial board, and over the next few years I look forward to supporting the wonderful editorial team who've put this together to help them to make it the success that I'm sure that it will be. So thank you very much.